there's a big difference between a dream and a vision. A dream, a lot of times is dream. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. But a vision is usually by people who are capable of making dreams come to life. I became a believer that he could do it because I saw milestones hit. I saw big mountains conquered. I saw how he negotiated with people and negotiated with business partners and big companies. And I'm like, okay, just pulled another one off.
Millennial's choice, younger audience, starting businesses, starting podcasts, starting ventures. They look and they see the giants. What are some of the things they should be focusing on? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Millennial's Choice Show. I'm your host, Matthew, and I got my brother from the same mother.
What's going on, guys?
What's going on, Danny? And today we got a special guest in the house. Guys, we flew all the way from Toronto, Canada to bring you value. And we are here with Thomas Ellsworth. He is the guy you've seen on the PBD podcast, Valuetainment podcast. He has case studies. He speaks about politics, religion, among other things. He's built businesses, scaled them, and we're very happy to be here with Tom. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Well, this part of me is Canadian. Yeah, my great-grandparents were from just outside of Toronto, my dad's side. Came to the United States looking for warmth. We're in Kansas for one generation. Still didn't find warmth. And finally ended up in California. So my Canadian roots go back. I joke with people, from about here to here, I'm still Canadian. I'm well diluted, awesome. But
Has Trudeau screwed that up for you at all? Or
No. So it's good to be here, eh?
Thank you. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Definitely.
And actually in our language, so we're Assyrian, similar to where Vincent's from. We say la. Has he ever said that to you? So basically the equivalent of A is la.
Got it.
It's kind of like right.
Well, A comes from Canada because it's how they teach you to spell. C-A-N-A-D-A.
And we're very happy to be here.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for coming down here. It's a privilege to be with you with your millennial focus, man.
Yeah, well, you know what? We want to learn from everybody. There's lessons you can learn from everybody. I think you should be a sponge in life, and you've got a lot of history, a lot of great stories I've been told, and we want to see if we can just peel back some of those layers and get some stories and learn some lessons from you. So why don't you start from the beginning in terms of when did you meet Patrick? How did this get started?
Wow, so Pat and I have been together for as friends and in business coming up on 15 years. And we originally met in Los Angeles, California. We're introduced by a pastor at the church, believe it or not. And when we got introduced to each other by the pastor, it was kind of funny. Our wives were part of a women's group, and they're like, oh, you need to meet this guy. You need to meet this guy. And when they introduced us after service one day, I'm like, wait a minute, I know this guy. We've already met. And the wives are like, really? Oh my gosh. So what do you do when you get a new friend? You talk about life, you talk about work, you talk about dreams, talk about the future, talk about kids you have, kids you don't. And, it led to a lot of discussions with him about PHP. And he was building this agency and he was going out on his own. And he had this very big dream. And I soon realized that there's a big difference between a dream and a vision. A dream, a lot of times is dream. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. But a vision is usually by people who are capable of making dreams come to life. And that was very much Pat, a guy who's capable of making a dream come to life. So it's basically a vision, which quickly becomes a mission when you get enough people around you that can pull it off. Now it's not a dream anymore. It's not a vision. You're on a mission, and now you're running down with a bunch of running mates to make it happen. And so I was working on a digital publishing project at that time. I finished that, sold that company. And then Pat was like, hey, I'm trying to scale this. And Pat, man, he's got marketing, he's got sales, he's got comp plans. He's got very deep understandings of where he wants to take the business. But there was also the back office and scaling the business as a whole, which is things I had done. And so that was kind of the relationship. It was like, the brand, the force, the vision, the founder, the drive, the sales, the marketing, and whatever I throw at you, Tom, let's make sure we can process it and turn it into revenue. And so it was like, let's get the back office. And there was a lot of other people he had recruited in there. One of them, most notably his wife, Jennifer. who was responsible for the IT systems and the architecture. She's not a CIO, but she understood all the systems and how they had to weave together to get a lot of things done. And so it was a privilege to work on the back. And then, you know, about a year and a half ago, coming up on 2 years ago, great big giant company came and bought that insurance company.
Congratulations. Yep.
And Pat is now driving Valuetainment and Bet David Consulting and Minect, and a couple other things, big dreams that are becoming big visions and missions in media. So he's not done yet. We're not done yet.
Exciting.
I
Was
like
there
that.
ever a moment where he said something to you, you're like, you're crazy, that's not going to happen, or this is way too big out of our realm? Or was it always a situation where you're like, I like this guy, what he says, it's going to happen, he's going to do it?
So the early part of our relationship, I came from kind of Silicon Valley startups, and I understood that world. And when we would get together and talk, I was very pragmatic and very analytical about a lot of things we were looking at. And sometimes that would drive Pat a little crazy, because when you're pragmatic and you're overly analyzing things, not that you're hyper analyzing them, you're just trying to give them a full good look to see, is this going to be possible? Is it really a there? And when you do that with a vision person and with a dream and vision person like Pat, sometimes there's rough edges there. And so I went from having a belief that he could do it, because I recognize that belief and I recognize that characterization in the heart and soul of the entrepreneur. I completely understood that. But you're not a believer until you conquer certain mountains and you hit a couple milestones. So now you had a belief in the person, but now a big sub goal en route to the bigger goal and bigger visions has been attained. And you're like, okay, now I'm a believer because I've seen it happen. You might think of it this way, and this is a primitive way to look at it, but you have a belief in an athlete, so you draft them, whether you're the NBA or Major League Baseball, NFL, hockey. So you draft it because you have a belief in that kid based on what you see, what you can measure, what you can analyze. But when you see him win Rookie of the Year, which is, amazing rookies in football have done it. You see it in basketball. I mean, good grief, Magic Johnson. There was a belief in Magic Johnson. But if you go back and look at it, 2/3 of the way through his Rookie of the Year, the whole NBA were believers because they saw what was happening, and they won the championships and beat the Philadelphia 76ers and Dr. J. So all those years, Dr. J trying to win a championship, and here comes this rookie, beats him. It's just amazing. So once we got through this and we found a way to kind of work and really put nitro and glycerin together, then you had some really things going. But what I learned was, hey, you got to let the dreamers go, and the dreamer keep thinking, and the dreamer keep doing, and the dreamer keep driving. And I became a believer that he could do it because I saw milestones hit. I saw big mountains conquered. I saw how he negotiated with people and negotiated with business partners and big companies. And I'm like, okay, just pulled another one off, just pulled that off. And so my belief went to believer in not too long. And so now, we sit and we have big dreams at the same time. So
That's awesome. That's awesome that it went that way. Sometimes believing is seeing, right? You have to kind of see those milestones, as you mentioned, and you go through it, and you have to go through that door again and again. And we have this conversation actually with one of our videographers back home. And I tell him, I go, you keep seeing us do it. And he's like really on board and saying, you know what, you're right. And I guess that speaks to credibility as well, right? Somebody's credibility. And it's part of the game.
Yeah.
Completely. The longer you experience somebody, the more you trust them, right? And that's it's life mimics sports so much. It's like, who do you trust to take the shot? Who do you trust with the ball in their hand? Who do you trust in that final at bat?
Exactly.
It all comes down to, and those are all humans on those playing fields, and business is a playing field full of humans. And so who do you trust to make that decision? Who do you trust to drive that next step? It's very similar, except that sports is measured in micro moments,
Right.
the last play,
Yeah.
just a couple seconds. But it's the same human dynamic of coaching, believing, and putting the ball in somebody's hand.
For sure. And I wanted to ask you, are you able to share with us like one of the most memorable learning experiences that you've had when it comes to business? Just for any young person that's watching right now, because a lot of people, think that, hey, listen, like it's bad to make mistakes and we can't really learn from others, but I think the opposite. I think we can learn from others' experiences as well too. And I was just curious, with somebody with your amount of business experience, is there something that kind of stands out to you that you can share with someone
Yeah,
that's listening to this?
people have asked me this before,
Mm.
and there's a couple phases to business. And so when you sit there and you say, what was a key learning that you had? And I think one of the key learnings I've had is it will take longer than you think, but be effing impatient. And I talk about it this way. If you want to get to the moon, aim for Mars. And if you run out of gas, you're at the moon. And that's just kind of the way it feels in business, right? It always takes longer than you think, but be freaking impatient and aim. If you want to go to the moon, aim for Mars. And you apply that to everything you're doing, whether you're expanding a sales force, you're putting another product in place, you're trying to find out how many development hours it will take to build another iteration or another version. It takes longer than you think, but man, be really impatient, but be patient in a good way, with true believers, with true believers that are there for the ride.
How much has your faith played a role in it? You mentioned you met Patrick at the church.
Mm-hmm.
We're churchgoers. How much has that played a role in it? And you as a CEO or a person of influence, having that morality, having that true north, how much has that played a role?
Well, I'm as flawed as the next guy because I'm human. But fortunately, I have a playbook and the Lord that works with me to see if I can make myself better tomorrow than I am today. And one of the things is kind of a credo I have is, I will leave you better than I found you. And I think that people ask me where I get that. And I say, well, it's just kind of a Jewish carpenter thing, It's like this Christ, Christ left me better than he found me, but I'm still wickedly raw around the edges. I'm still human. I'm still shocked by, the level of anger I can carry in my mind at some points when things happen. And it's just your humanness. It's what you do with it and how you discipline yourself to deal with these regular human emotions. And so I think if you don't have you look at it this way. I think of my faith as sort of like antivirus software and a hard drive backup.
Mm.
So my faith is antivirus software to help me, prevent bad viruses from getting to me on a human level. And then it's like having a hard drive backup, that there's a foundation there and there's something that I can go back and rely on. And it's just led to my credo. I hope I'll leave you better than I found you. Some people believe that, some people don't, We had a guy at the company recently who, after he departed, he said, I don't think you left me better than you found me. And I said, okay, well, there were two of us in this business relationship. And, there's 6 people in the company that were watching his behavior, his decisions, how he distracted others, how he polluted somebody that came in, how he was lobbying things. And it's like, and you're upset with us. And that's where at those times, I say to myself, what does my faith do? Causes me to give grace. Because once they're gone, they're gone. You know, I can't hold a grudge. I can't go, long term. I got other things to do.
Yeah.
And so your faith kind of keeps you from being perpetually upset about something. You can be perpetually disappointed because you can say, how do you file that? I was really disappointed in that person. I think they blew it for themselves and a lot of other people, and now they're blaming everybody else because we didn't change to suit them, because we didn't shift our culture, because we didn't do this. And it's like, dude, whose company is this?
Right.
Who put the money on the line to make it happen? And now you're here, maybe you should just tell you what. We're going to send you to Montreal where everybody can pretend to be socialist and be entitled. And then after a year, we're going to send you to Calgary, Alberta. You're going to listen to people talk the other way about transfer payments, about oil, gas, and beef. And maybe, just maybe, you'll have perspective and you'll kind of understand that there's two sides to it. But, there's just like entitlement and stuff. And I think faith is so critical so that you have a place to put all this. And you say, and you have grace for the person, but you hold them accountable for behavior. Look, you're a flawed person, but your behavior, you're going to be accountable for that, for what you say, what you did, what you didn't do, whatever it is.
Makes sense. So it's a perfect segue into my question I want to ask you. So do you think your faith helped you in terms of your business career, or do you think it kind of made it more challenging in terms of, being a successful business person?
I think it's helped me, I think it's helped my moderation of moods at times. And it's been a foundation. I've never gone down the path of like endorsing a flawed business, flawed leaders, or flawed product. I mean, I see what Elizabeth Holmes did with Theranos. She's in jail. I see what SBF did at FTX. He's on his way to jail
For a long time.
for a very long time.
Yep.
And I say to myself, if I didn't have faith, might I have been conned into joining and being part of that? I can't say I wouldn't. I hope I wouldn't. But if you don't have an anchor for your ethics and integrity, could you be just drifting with the current and the wind? You could.
I think so.
You can't say, oh, I would never do that. You can't say that. You can say, I would hope that I would have never, in a similar position, I wouldn't have done that. And I correct people all the time. Oh, I would never do that. You don't know. You don't know the situation. You don't there. And how do you know that if they had even a tenth of your faith, that maybe they wouldn't have done it either?
Right.
Well, that's a good point.
Unless you're there faced with that decision, you will never know. But what I was going to lead into it now regarding the question of faith, because I'm an avid PBD podcast viewer. So I watch a lot of the stuff, especially a lot of the political stuff. And I really love your perspective. But what I wanted to ask was, when it comes to now, a lot of the things that are happening in society, whether that's the political side of things, a lot of civil issues within the country, let's not even focus outside of Canada and America. Do you think that this plan to remove God out of society, whether that's as simple as removing the phrase God out of an anthem, or in our case in Canada, out of the morning school prayer, do you think that that's part of the problem with why society has been headed in the direction that it's been headed into?
Yeah, I do. Have you heard of Paul Harvey?
I have not.
Can I play something for
Please.
you? Can you pass me my phone? I'm going to have you guess what year this was, but I'm going to have you listen to it for just a second. There's no music on this, so we'll be good.
Okay.
Because if there's music, then,
Yes.
they YouTube and other things will sense that and they'll be all upset.
Okay.
Let's do it. By the way, shout out. We'll put a plug in here
Yeah.
to this drink. Evolve. This is my second one on these pods. There's no caffeine, zero sugar. Black cherry's my favorite.
I love coconut. Like that too, but this is actually fire.
If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
Wow, when was that from?
1965?
1965.
Wow. How did you get that? Wow.
I've heard it before. I remember it as you played it.
Wow. 1965.
Yeah. And isn't that interesting that you fast forward now over 50 years later and it's happening exactly like that?
It's happening.
So what does that tell you about
But
this is called Millennials Choice, right? So our audience is millennials. And that's why I love having different people from all kinds of demographics and experiences, because we have a bad rap. And sometimes a lot of people just don't know any better. But that's why we harp on the God thing. So
I hope that didn't offend you.
not at all.
No, of course not.
Isn't it? But it's to me, it's a little frightening that that's 1965. And but you know what? If you look over time, you know, human civilization on Earth has been one revival after another. It's just a matter of how many years in between the revivals. Sometimes there was a couple centuries between revivals, but then there was, you know, the realization that, you know, who you are is a reflection of your creator. And you have an opportunity to either glorify that and then make the society around you a little bit better, or just go the other way and do whatever you want and everything's okay. And I think that's, in my own way, I hope I bring standards and, a demonstrated interest in caring for people. Doesn't mean you don't get upset. Don't mean you get frustrated. People doing a poor job, doing a good job. It's just humans. Right? Separate behavior from people. I always ask, why do you do that? It's never, oh, you're an idiot. That's so terrible. That's a permanent label. You're an idiot. No, you're not. It's like, hey, what were you thinking? Turn it that way. And that's kind of the way I hope to leave you better than I found you. That's one of the ways.
What stage do you think we're at in society now in terms of how close are we to awakening?
You see 9/11 not so many years ago, 20 years ago, 22 years ago. And you see 9/11 and you see what happened in the U.S., where everybody came together. They were joining hands. They were praying before NFL games. It was amazing. It's because there was a reminder that the world is a dangerous place, and at that moment we had a common enemy. And it doesn't matter if you believe that it was an inside job and conspiracy or if it was Osama bin Laden. The fact is, it showed that all of us could stop for a second and say, wow, I'm really worried about this, and come together and demonstrate brotherhood and encouragement on a platform of faith. So I don't think we're terribly far from like a major awakening, because I don't think we're terribly far from people kind of realizing what's happening. I'm very encouraged right now to see all of the people that have really opened their eyes about COVID and about vaccines. Mm-hmm. And people are going, whoa, wait a minute. Now, there's some people that just won't give up their position. They won't be wrong. And they think it's all about being right or being wrong. And so they refuse to be wrong. You know the ones I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. And they won't admit a thing. And then you have other people like Bill Maher. They're like, wait a minute. What we knew at the time was wrong. What we were being told at the time was wrong. Myocarditis is real. People are having these reactions. This is bad. And so it usually takes something big to create a real awakening revival. And I just, I don't know if I want to be there when something big happens. You know what I'm saying?
And that's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
It takes big things to get people together. Is it a cyber attack and the grid goes down and it's 3 weeks of darkness without electricity? And we'll find out what's up that day.
And that's what I was going to ask. You think that that's what it's going to take? A major event?
Yeah. I mean, that's been human history. It took major events. But with major events, everybody kind of gets with the program.
Anarchy.
Yeah, for a moment. But then everybody's like, whoa, we got to do this. The whole nation was really unified after 9/11.
Yeah. I'm very curious to hear your perspective on the end times. Obviously, everything that's happening with Israel, Hamas, Palestine. What are your thoughts on, the end times? Do you think we're in the end times, or we're approaching the end times?
I think we're on the cusp of it. If you read the book of Revelation, you open it up and you have the initial chapters talking about the various churches. Mm-hmm. The church at Pergamum, Philadelphia, Thyatira, Laodicea, and going through those churches. And it describes very accurately what we face today. Oh, this church lost its love for people. This church picked up heresies. This church was not really hot or cold. It was lukewarm. I wish you were one or the other. this church was full of love and charity, and you did it right. So I think you look around, you see all that. But I think every generation thinks it's close. World War I, the trench warfare and everything that was going on there, the number of people that were dying, Spanish flu and all the plagues that happened, pandemics. People thought the Lord can't be far away. Then you get to World War II, you hear about the Holocaust and what's going on and what the Japanese were doing in China and the things that were horrible. And you say to yourself, man, the Lord can't be far away. Then you got to the 60s and people saw the children rebel in Vietnam, and we were worried about nuclear war with Russia, and it was a big deal, and people were really freaking worried. And people would say, it can't be far behind. And now you get today and we say, what the governments are doing, what they're saying, what they're trying to do, what's happening, it can't be far behind. So I think every generation thinks it can't be far behind. In a way, they're right, because what they're seeing is the continued erosion and downfall of mankind. But on the other side, there's also reason to believe that the future is bright and say, man, I think a revival could be right around the world. I think the future looks bright. I think the number of people go the other way. The number of people that have woken up about COVID and woken up when we were told, you know what? People are waking up. Future looks bright. And when the government does that trick once, it can't do it again. Now, in other ways, we're not going to be tricked. So in many ways, I think the future looks very bright. In other ways, I'm like, wow, every generation has looked in a mirror and said, can the Lord really be far away?
I listened to Pastor Chuck Smith. He passed away now, Calvary Chapel.
Yep.
And the audio that I have in my car where he's narrating the Bible and doing a Bible study with his church, he always says, this is going to happen like imminently the Lord's return. And I think at that time they were just getting credit cards. And that technology for him was going to be the end.
Can it be far behind?
Exactly.
Here's the financial things they're talking about in the Bible. Here's this that we're talking about in the Bible.
Exactly.
Yeah, you sit there and you just wonder about all that, and you say to yourself, wow, here's our generation saying what they said in World War II. Can the Lord be far behind? Kind of crazy.
And as the days go on, the actual days and the actual hours, it is getting closer. That's just natural, right? The timeline is progressing. And it's like the birth pangs that Jesus talks about. So shifting a little bit of focus back to the business world, millennials' choice, younger audience, starting businesses, starting podcasts, starting ventures. They look and they see the giants and they say, I want to be there. I have goals and aspirations to be at that level and build a solid business with a solid foundation on solid footing and ground. But I'm just starting out. What are some of the things they should be focusing on as a startup?
So I recommend 2 books nowadays. One of them is The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, and the other is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. They're both a little different, but they provide important perspectives on a startup, driving a startup, and getting there. And from there, as you think about innovation, I recommend people diving into the works of Clayton Christensen, The Innovator's Dilemma, books like that, and go get smart about something. If you think there's a need for a solution in whatever market, whether it's dog walking or national security software, go get smart. Venture capital and private equity, before they invest in something, they'll say, wow, you know what? I think I like this opportunity, but I really have to go get smart. So when I say go get smart, I mean that in a positive way. Go learn everything you can, see where the cracks and crevices are, keep scratching in that dirt. And so I would read those books and get smart about the kind of company you would build, how you would build it, and then go get smart on a sector. If you've been dreaming about something or you've got an idea and you've been, boy, since my Junior year in college, I was thinking about this. Oh, okay. Well, go down the path. And I would tell people, be bold, be curious, and be unafraid. The next Apple is out there. The next NVIDIA is out there. They're all out there.
And the opportunities are endless. There's no limit.
There is no limit. They actually negotiated, it was like 1920 or something. They were going to close the U.S. Patent Office because they thought everything that could be invented had been invented.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You can go look that up. And it's like,
that was in the 20s? 1920s?
Yeah. When they said, let's close the U.S. Patent Office.
Imagine now, 100 years later.
That's crazy.
Charles H. Duell, Duell, was a commissioner of the U.S. Patent Office. Everything that can be invented has been invented. I was wrong. 1889.
Hey.
1889. Wow.
Oh, man.
Lots
He
of
hadn't
things to
seen cars
discover.
or airplanes.
We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year. We're going to get to 100,000
We are.
subscribers by the end of this year. You have any tips for us growing a YouTube channel?
To get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year, I would say focus on who you are, focus the message on that, and focus your guest on that. And then make sure in social that you're equally focused and generate the momentum around the point of focus. Whether that's millennials, which I think you're pointing to, or the people that are immediately around the millennials.
Yes.
Yeah.
Focus, focus, focus.
Any final words for the audience? Do you want to put a plug where they can find you? You're an author, your book.
Yeah, I co-authored a book with Pat, Drop Out and Get Schooled, and The Life of the Entrepreneur in 90 Seconds. Those are fun books. But I like to plug Minect. We built an app called Minect. If you have a minute, let's connect. With the concept being that, you speak to a lawyer for 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 11 minutes, you're going to get a bill for a half hour. And we look at that and we say, not only is that whacked, you should pay by the minute for that, number one. So there's thought number one. But then the other side of it, what if we could build a marketplace where anybody that had a question about business, about life, or whatever could instantly find someone, pay by the minute, and get an answer from a credible person so that they could go about their day. And it was cost effective on one hand, but then it was also fair compensation for the experts on the other hand. And that's what Minect is. And Minect it's been like a bomb going off. People can find me on Minect. Download Minect or go to Minect.com, Minnect.com, and go find me. You can book us. All the experts are on there. You can book them on podcasts. You can also find experts to answer questions you may have. Hey, I'm starting a business. I'm writing a business plan. I'd like to get another set of eyes on it. Can I get 15 minutes with you? And there it is. And you get these people. You try to do that on LinkedIn, no one returns your LinkedIn message. You do it on Minect, it's like 97.5% of the time, people respond.
That's how we got connected.
Exactly. Yeah. We did this podcast was one of the first podcast schedules through Minect, where you can find an expert, you can ask a text question, you can get a video answer, or you can have a one-on-one video, or you can find those same experts and see if they're available for your podcast.
Yeah.
And you were one of the first ones that used Minect for that purpose. So yeah, it's available for Android, iOS, 42 countries around the world. Go download it, set up a profile, be an expert, or set up a mini profile as a user and go get a bunch of questions answered so you can start your business, do better in life, whatever it is. Be a better artist. There's all kinds of people in there to teach you anything.
Thank you, Thomas. This has been great. We appreciate all the knowledge, all the wisdom that you shared with us today. If you guys are still watching, thank you so much. make sure to drop us a huge thumbs up, drop a comment, drop that sub, and we'll see you guys on the next one. We're out.